Hello, this is Don Shanahan of Every Movie Has a Lesson, and welcome back to another edition of the Movie Classroom on YouTube, combining a film review with an interactive whiteboard presentation, because I'm a school teacher and that's just how I like to roll with things. This week the film is Detroit, which for me is a 4-star out of 5-star film. It opens this past weekend and should extend to more national release next weekend. Here's my review. 5 years ago, this coming October, I labeled the eventual Best Picture Oscar winner Argo as quote-unquote timely, with its revealed history on a hostage crisis debuting on the heels of the 2012 embassy attacks in Libya and Egypt occurring less than a month before its release. That was a fateful bit of happenstance that propelled the film. In the wake of an unfortunately steady modern-day news cycle of racially charged civilian deaths at the hands of police, Kathryn Bigelow's Detroit, taking us back to similar incidents in 1967, is an equally timely film with a relevancy that cannot and should not be ignored any longer. The kicker is, the story of Detroit, one of 10 national uprisings in what became known as the Long Hot Summer of 1967, has been timely, ignorance and all, for 50 years. It was timely a year after when Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated in 1968. It was timely in Jackson State in 1970, 11 days after Kent State. It was timely in Miami in 1980. It was timely in Los Angeles in 1992. It was timely in Ferguson 3 years ago and in Baltimore 2 years ago. Bottom line, it was timely next to any one of the over 40 ethnic riots that have occurred on American soil in the last half-century. This film counts as better late than never if it takes a piece of entertainment telling serious stories to instigate hard reflection and improved new public dialogue. Detroit is poised to accomplish such a mission. In the late July of 1967, the Detroit police force's public dismantling and blatant arrests, coming from a blind pig, an unsanctioned after-hours bar run by blacks on the city's near west side, incited riots, the third largest in U.S. history before it was all said and done, and caused destructive looting that lasted for 5 days. It was enough for Governor George Romney to send in the Michigan Army National Guard and President Lyndon Johnson to call on the 82nd and 101st Airborne Divisions to join them. The multiple Oscar-winning pair behind The Hurt Locker and Zero Dark 30, director Kathryn Bigelow and writer Mark Boal, apply a powerful dramatic license of independent research, dotted with archival flashes to the trajectories of real-life citizens that collided one heinous night at the Algiers Motel in the Virginia Park neighborhood of Detroit. That night, a man, played by Jason Mitchell, brandishing and firing a starter pistol from a hotel window in the direction of the National Guard, prompts a frenzy that has the nearby police and military personnel, descending on the hotel. Caught in this ruckus are the original lead singer of the Dramatics, Larry Reed, played by newcomer Algie Smith, carrying himself like a young Lorenz Tate. His associate Fred, played by singer-actor Jacob Lattimore, a returning Vietnam War veteran, played by Anthony Mackie, 2 white prostitutes, Hannah Moore and Caitlin Deaver, and other tenants of the hotel's annex. They are rounded up, abused, and forcefully interrogated for hours by a corrupt and racist trio of Detroit officers, led by Philip Krause, played by Will Poulter, backed by Jack Rayner and Ben O'Toole. Bearing witness, and definitely a measure of complicity, are Warrant Officer Roberts, played by Austin Hebert, and stalwart local security guard Melvin Dismukes, played by the top-billed John Boyega. Shot with bracing and in-your-face voyeurism by Captain Phillips cinematographer Barry Ackroyd, to say what transpired has to be seen to be believed would be as equal an unfathomable understatement as saying what happened was hard to believe. The outlandishness hits home when the realization washes over that this is a real event. The harrowing hours of civil atrocities are soul-rattling, drenched with distressing emotion generated by intense performances. Star Wars star Boyega carries top billing, but Algie Smith and Will Poulter stand out among the ensemble for conveying the yin of hope and the yang of evil. The tension and pain, flushed with period detail and production, could not be more palatable. For a film like Detroit, with difficult content thrust upon audiences to endure, this is not a place to seek entertainment or joy like a typical film. Bigelow's movie wins sympathy easily, and it better. Instead, and furthermore more than that, Detroit is a challenge of cementing respect and achieving an empathy deeper than just basic sympathy. Many recent historical dramas, take Unbroken for example from Angelina Jolie, of agonizing events kind of dwell on the agony and fail to provide contextual roots and reverberating rumination. Detroit succeeds in both, with poetic hardship between a deft montage of animated Jacob Lawrence migration paintings to open the film and an extended post-event narrative that lingers to punch further incensed body blows as strongly as the terrifying episode itself. In light of whatever movement, color, or creed, or slogan, or hashtag you follow when you leave the movie theater, step into a beyond cautionary tale of history that school books skipped or have forgotten. Let Detroit stir and inspire conversations. Let the emotions, good and bad, come and talk about them. More positive change comes from that than more silence and more ignorance. That's my review of Detroit. Here are my life lessons that I tag on to every review. Lesson number 1, think before you act. No matter which side of the racial conflict and divide you examine in the events like Detroit, so many fallen dominoes could have been avoided with mere seconds given to thought over those given to gross overreaction. Look and listen before you shoot a gun. Don't shoot or pretend to shoot people carrying guns. Choose your words better. Look past the color of a person's skin. Ask yourself if who or what you are provoking is worth the dangers and risks. Realize the damage you cause can hurt others and your own community. Remember what you stand for and what you represent, from a working citizen all the way up to a man with a badge or an elected official. Think before you act. Lesson number 2. The problems of race and justice we face are, unfortunately, systemic. Amid those pleas of making better choices from lesson number 1, finger pointing or biased prioritizing can come in and deter from finding the real causes within a mess of embroiled issues. The problem isn't one thing, be that police criminality, racism, socioeconomic equality, or loopholes of court corruption, or a simple isolated event or two. This is more than the 50 years since 1967. It's 241 years in the United States and then some. It's all of it, which points to the broken fibers and fractured core of what is supposed to be a free and equal democratic system of governed rights. Systems fail people to a greater degree than singular problems and singular incidents, meaning larger corrections and larger reforms are needed, and it goes all the way to the top. Detroit shows that is easier said than done. It's unfortunate kind of history that I think becomes required viewing for people who just, if they can't picture and understand the situations that are still readily happening today, call this a slice of life that is worth seeing. It is a powerful drama and definitely worth your time. Thank you very much, and that has been another edition of the Movie Classroom. Please check out everymoviehasalesson.com. Like, subscribe, follow whatever you can for me between YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and otherwise. Thank you very much. Have a good one.